To begin this painting, I'm going to be using a panel that I had started working on, but I decided to scrape off the image and I turned it around. So I'm going to be using a 12 by 12. It's a linen panel that's prepared with an acrylic primer. I'm going to be using today the water-soluble oils that are the ARTISAN Winsor Newton brand. I have used also the Lucas Berlin. You can find that in other areas in my channel, other videos. Before you decide to put thumbs down and dislike this video, just go to the end, see the end product. You have an advantage towards me. I don't know how this is gonna look like, but you can. So just go to the end, and if you like it, then you can watch this video either at the normal speed, or you can speed it up or skip pieces of it. But you know, I'm meant to be showing how I would build a painting. I'm trying to be painting looser than I used to do, and also with a limited palette color. So from the ARTISAN line, I'm using their titanium white, which is the most opaque color that I use, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson. It's the permanent alizarin crimson. This is Phthalocyanine Green with a blue hue, and this is French Ultramarine blue. I may need to introduce other colors, but I'm trying to stay that way. This is the first time I'm using a vertical palette with the purpose of you seeing my mixes. It may or it may not work. What I'm going to do is starting with a brush. It's a Simply Simmons brush, size 12. So it's probably less, maybe an inch wide, which is a good size for starting. And I'm trying to keep my shapes loose. First thing I'm going to do is to use the alizarin crimson and the phthalo green. They make a very beautiful purple color. And this is going to be a wash. So with a lot of water, these are water soluble oils, and I am not going to introduce any kind of fancy media. This line has a very nice selection of different media that you can use that are also water soluble. On the other hand, you can also use the regular oils. They mix very well, but then you don't have the advantage of washing your brushes just with water. Then you would need to use solvents, thinners, etc. I found the water-soluble oils work very well. So with that washy sort of dark color, I'm just going to establish where the darks are. And I can see right away it's looking very green. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the alizarin crimson to that mix, and off camera I'm just dipping it into a little bit of water. So this is how I'm going to be starting this painting. And as I mentioned, if you want to see what am I painting, I cannot show you because I don't have a printer, and I actually use my photograph as a reference. I don't copy. I don't have the ability to copy. I'm not a professional painter, but I also like the looseness of making this more of a painting rather than a photograph or a photographic rendition. Again, I do not have the skills and the knowledge to do that, but I enjoy painting tremendously. So there's going to be a dark area, and I'm just looking at where the darks are and where I want to establish these darks, because darks are the transparent, and I usually like to start with darks. And then as I go into less dark objects, and especially I try to introduce white, usually late. There we go. Vertical palette challenges Newton's law of gravity. Okay. As I was saying, when you introduce white, which I try to introduce late in my paintings, it's opaque, and the opaque paints usually then will be covering the transparent darks very nicely, but you can never go back to that transparency. So opposite to what happens with watercolor paintings, what you do in oils, and this works also for acrylic paints, is that if you start with the transparent wash of the dark, then you can always put some of the opaque and work with the opaque on top of the dark. But if you put opaque on top of the dark, you can paint dark on top, definitely, but it will not show the transparency that I sort of like to keep, especially for shadowed areas. So we'll see what happens with this painting. You have, as I mentioned, the advantage on me that you already know how this painting is going to look, because I have no idea. And again, this is the first time I do this setting, and it is moving a lot, so I hope I'm not getting you dizzy. Again, before you put a thumbs down, if you are not liking this, you can go fast speed. Maybe you like how it's evolving, or, you know, just go watch another thing if you don't like it. But, you know, think about it before putting thumbs down. I usually leave the thumbs down for some things that really bothered me, or that I don't think are appropriate for channels, etc. So I hope you enjoy this. The whole purpose of me doing this is I'm enjoying myself, but I also like to share some of the techniques that I use. So as you see, I have established now some dark areas. Here, this is going to be a tree, and there's going to be a lot of light coming through here. So this tree is backlit. It's a prune tree that I had in my other house. I had a beautiful landscaping done by a friend of my sister and a friend of mine who lives in Australia. And he came to the United States to do my landscaping. All right, so darks are established. Now, the next thing that I am going to be introducing is a bit more of the reddish tones that I see in the prune tree. This is a prune tree, and I had some azaleas in the back. Well, I don't want to bore you with details, because what I just want to do is give the impression of the painting. So for the prune tree, it's a nice deep purple color. I can achieve purple again with the same combination, or I can start introducing a bit of the ultramarine blue to change a little bit. Now, ultramarine blue will make it a bit cooler. As you can see, this paint that I am mixing now has less water because I'm going to start building some layers. And I like scooping out the paint. May need more of these alizarin crimson. I like the way that it's looking, very much more reddish in the top, and there are some areas that have light, but again, I just don't want to go into details. I really want to try, and forgive me if I can't, but I'm going to try to avoid too many details. I would like to leave more of the areas that are describing what I see, but not necessarily in too much detail. This area in the bottom is definitely darker, so I'm going to again reestablish a bit more of the dark. And evidently everything that's standing upright, well, also horizontal, I mean everything that's receiving light from the top is darker in the bottom. Receives less light, and there's more dark areas. So definitely this tree was darker in the bottom. To make red lighter, when we get to the areas that are lighter here, to make red lighter, using yellow, it's a very nice way of making that red lighter, because if we use pink, we actually change it. I mean, if we use white, we change it to pink. Anyway, So let's now, we have this area of the dark, let's introduce a little bit of greens. And you can see how I am just mixing on the same area. I am probably going to bring a bit more of the alizarin crimson and this phthalocyanine green. Phthalocyanine green is a very powerful green and it's not natural. So if you bought the same set and you're using it as you would be using a sap green or an olive green, you're not gonna like it. But look how beautiful green you can get when you mix with the red and yellow ochre. Now this looks more natural. And if we add blue, which we will be doing in a minute, you get different shades of green. So just, you know, get used to it. And the reason why I started using these colors is because they come in a set. It's a beginner's set. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like using the water mixable or water soluble oils, and I didn't want to commit to buying a lot of tubes. So that's how I started buying this beginner set, and I actually like the limited palette. They also have cadmium yellow, which we may or may not introduce in this particular painting. So as you can see, because it's water-soluble oils, they're tacky, they're still feeling that it's oil under this area, but they dry faster than regular oils, and that allows you for building layers a bit faster. So I do enjoy working with the water-soluble oils, and especially because they are less toxic. You don't need solvents, I mean just water. To me, it's just easier also if I travel. As you saw, I use now the blue and the yellow to change these green colors a bit. Okay. Now I have a bit more brighter sort of greens that I want to introduce in the front of this area in the painting. So I'm using the dirty area of the palette on purpose. Not only it brings a bit harmony because I am using the same colors, but also it avoids me from having colors that are not very natural. By having all these colors mixed, it really brings more natural greens. Greens that are used to be perceived as challenging colors, probably because when we mix straight ultramarine blue with a cadmium yellow, it's going to look very like, you know, on your face. So sometimes what I like to do is just have a dirty palette, and my dirty mixes, I actually keep them also in the freezer when I finish paintings, and that actually also helps me combine colors that are grays. So when I do my last sort of bits of punch line that I call, you know, the last areas that you want to have the popping element, which are going to be, I think my focal point is going to be somewhere here. There's a chair. If you are using colors that are not very saturated in your painting, that allows for a very good base for when you want to do your saturated colors. Okay, so now in the back here, I have some elements that have some red, which are some azaleas. And if you can see, by adding yellow ochre to that alizarin crimson, I am getting a punchier red. I don't want it to be cadmium red. I do have cadmium red, but I don't want to do it because these are azaleas that are in the back, and that I think it would catch too much attention. So, but just doing it that way, I think it's gonna work better doing it that way. All right, so there's a bit more around here, and there's It's going to be like a chair in front of here. All right. So now that we have established more or less the darks, we can start getting into a bit more of the lights. To establish the lights, I want to get like a gray area here, which is the back end. Grays, of course, now we're going to start introducing our opaque color white. And to do grays, you can use any combination. This is too reddish, so if I add more of the, you can use the combination I'm doing is Phthalocyanine Green with Alizarin Crimson Permanent, and I like that kind of gray. And of course, it's on top of the area in the palette that already has blue and yellow. So it's a dirty color that's beautiful for what I want to attempt. It's probably still too dark. I am using a palette that's the Soho palette that's gray. And this is supposed to be in the middle range of values. So I should have known better that because this gray looked very much like the palette, it was going to be too dark. And I'm actually going to make it cooler by adding a bit of blue. This may still be too dark for what I want. So yes, I think this is gonna work better. This is kind of in the shade. These are white azaleas, but they were in the shade. And then I am going to make this just so that it's not the same kind of gray, but I want it to be in the same value. I want to start doing a bit of the back. And this back is going to be sort of trees. And then I'm going to introduce some of the sky color in there. So I hope this is making you feel that you could follow me either after you watch the painting or while I am painting. I hope that you can follow and that you have fun. My whole point of showing these is painting is a hobby of mine. I've painted since I was a girl. I never actually stopped painting, I should say. And it's just an activity that it's very relaxing. It's rewarding. Even when you don't like it, you saw how I started this painting, where I had a previous painting that I didn't like. So if you see, I am sort of just, there's a lot of paint in my brush and I'm just sort of adding it. I want to get the impression of blurred areas in here. And we will come back with a little bit more established color. But I like to paint, or this particular painting, I envision this as having like a golden light, because I like to do that golden color against the color of the purple. So I'm hoping I will be getting it. So this is my way of just establishing some colors here for a prune tree. And, you know, there's areas that are hopefully blurred, not very well defined. I don't think I'm going to be doing any level of very clear definition. And I actually got rid of an area that I wanted. And because I'm already using opaque colors, I'm just going to leave it that way. I'm not going to fight what I just did. I'm going to leave it that way. These were other kinds of trees. I actually don't even know. Shame on me. It was my own garden. But yeah, there were nice big trees. And of course, we have some sky holes in there. And this is going to be the azalea. All right. I think we're moving along quite well with this painting so far. There were less areas here of where you could see through, and I don't want to exaggerate on that. And then here we're going to be seeing through more of a, it's kind of a spring. I don't know if I did this in spring, this particular reference photo. I am not copying from the photo. As I mentioned, I would not be able to do that. I'm not that skilled, but I'm using it as a reference. This might actually be okay. This is for the back. And I don't, even though I can see a lighter green, I like this to be more grayish. And then this tree had several tree trunks. So this is what we call negative painting. I am just showing the different tree trunks that this nice tree had. I remember I saw this tree with my sister's friend when we were buying plants, and I just adored this tree from the moment I saw it. It was a tiny tree and it was on sale. It was unbelievable. I think it was like $50 or something like that. He even said, why do you like that tree so much? I don't know. I just loved it. And as it grew and had this beautiful prune color, I remember one time he came back. He returned several years to finish. He lives in Australia, so to finish the landscaping, and he said, "Now I know why you like this so much. It was a charming tree. Trees have their way to appeal to us in so many different ways. They give us shade, but they also they can give us fruits and so on. So anyway, this was a beautiful tree, and it really grew very nicely. So negative painting here. I'm leaving the original wash, and I'm hoping I'm not going to have to reestablish anything there. And now we have the tree with the 4 branches. This branch looks too wide, so I'm going to try to fix it. This is a bit tricky, and you might be just getting a bit desperate. Why doesn't she grab a smaller brush? Yes, I could, but I want to hold back on using a smaller brush because I just I don't want to start getting into too many details. So I want to push myself painting with this kind of larger brush, pushing myself for not doing too many details. I can see this sort of also bright color a little bit here in the back. Not too much though, but a little bit here in the back. And this nondescript is gonna, I think it's gonna make shapes pretty soon, I hope, define what we are seeing. So I like to do this and just try to do shapes first and then work on refining what we are seeing. Okay, this is going to be, so this goes a little lower. Okay, and this is like a wooden surface that he built where I had the chairs. So that's why this is so straight. You know, sometimes I actually prefer not to paint a lot of detailed architecture or architectural or man-made things because I like the lightness of trees, etc. So, but you know, this one has that bench. We may get rid of it depending if it works for the painting or not. I'm just making a little bit lighter colors in here, and I'm just gonna grab that white with a little bit of yellow, dirty, all dirty. Yeah, sometimes I like to just lose the straight edges. So I don't know if it's gonna work, depends on the painting. It's just, let's see how this is evolving, all right? Okay, and now we're gonna have some more flowers in here. Okay, so now with this same dirty yellowish color, maybe a bit more yellow. Yellow brings the sunlight. But again, I don't like to use it very, very bright until I am getting to the point of the final touches and the final elements of accents. So there's some bright areas on this wooden surface that are getting some light. So maybe, okay, and then I have a bright area in the back. I don't know if it's time to do that, but it might help me understand a little bit more of the architecture. And I'm just comparing, that's why I'm adding more white. I am comparing it to this color and also this color. So I know it has to be lighter. And there was this particular area in the back that was getting kind of a hint of light behind the tree. And then I have some areas here that are getting that same kind of light color reflected. And some of this is going to be shadows, but some of these should be the plants in the front. So this wooden surface went like this, and then it goes like this. That's probably what we are seeing, but this should be a little bit, just a few marks. And then this is definitely not as bright as the others. So, like I said, bear with me. So far, I have not cleaned the brush because I am building, as you probably already realized, I am building the colors on top of each other. And I'm not wanting any color that's pure color, not yet. So by not washing or even wiping the brush, I think that Phthalocyanine Green has a little bit thicker consistency than the Alizarin Crimson and the Ultramarine Blue. So I'm having a little bit of a challenge in getting it. I normally like to keep my pile of original colors clean. I never use the vertical palette. This is the first time. So I'm having a bit of trouble with getting these colors clean. I normally would use a palette knife. Okay. All right. So this is dark. There's those areas where I can see. So some of this is going to be shadow, and for the shadows I definitely want it to look more in the violet gray tone, or hue I should say, or bias, rather than green. So I am trying. This has the opaque on top, which is fine because some of these are shadows, and I like these shadows to have the edge a little bit blurred. And then we're gonna come back with some other accents in the front. Okay, so now what I am going to do is there's a little bit more of dark blues in there, and because I have this color, dark blues and greens, so I'm just going to establish this a little bit, like here in the back. It's on top of the previous, so we're working Alla Prima, and it is combining, which is perfectly fine. It's good that it's combining with the rest of it. Okay, so trying to get the paint off and then chisel edge. That's why I like these Simply Simmons. They get a very, very nice, I don't know if you can see it, chiseled edge. And it's very frustrating when you, at least for me, it was quite frustrating when I saw a lot of YouTube tutorials, or when I took some classes that I've taken, and I see the teachers and they have this beautiful chiseled edge, and I'm like, I can't get it because I did not take care of my brushes. I thought it was quality of brush, and I spent money in buying more expensive brushes, only to really find out that it has more to do with how you take care of your brushes rather than the amount of money that you spend with them. So I like these. These are synthetic. You can use synthetic brushes. Actually, you should use synthetic brushes for the water-soluble oils as well as acrylics. Reason is because the bristle brushes do not take water very well. If you use a bristle brush, like this example, with the water, they just, these bristles just pop up and then they sort of open up. It's the water doesn't do very well for them. So they're excellent for regular oils, or if you use water-soluble oils, do not clean them with water. You would need to clean them with oils or with thinner or other solvents, because otherwise the water really gets to the bristles. With the synthetics, these are just washed with water. I've had them for a long time, and they really are good. I'm sorry, I'm blabbing on and not painting, which I should not be doing. Okay, I'm just establishing some shadows. I did establish some of the back area there for the trees, and this is all going to be the white azaleas in shadow, and then there's going to be a little bit of lighter azalea color in here, but not that light. It's not really receiving a lot of light, but not that dark. Now I'm making this light azalea instead of, it's white, but instead of using white, I am using the white that already had green and especially yellow, because I don't, it's still in shadow. It's getting a bit more light, and there's only a little piece that's getting more light, and you don't want to use bright. I mean, maybe you do. So if it's your painting and you want to, that's fine. I'm explaining to you why I don't like to use the white here, because I don't want to pop it very quickly. All right. So now let's do, I might need to get a bit more of the Alizarin Crimson Permanent. Let's see, I underestimated. This is sort of a pinkish color that I had in some of the flowers here. Again, these were azaleas, most of them, azaleas or rhododendron is what we decided because of where I lived. They were very good plants for that particular area. And they actually, by having different colors, you don't only do a very nice landscaping, but you also get them at different times often. So you can see that I'm holding the brush really loose, really loose, to paint the impression of something pink there, which I hope will translate or read as flowers out of focus. So yes, these were more pinkish color, and these were definitely more red, and these were the white azaleas. All right, so moving along, I think we're doing well, and I think right now I am going to clean the brush, take the excess paint off, as that's a very nice color called Mix of Everything. And I am just dunking it into water. As water soluble oils, I can just clean the majority of the paint that still remained with pure water, and I have several buckets of water just to make sure that I have clean water instead of a big one. It's really up to you, but if you are using regular oils, this would be the time when you actually use your thinners, your special thinners. Okay, I am going to go now for a number 6, and for this number 6 I'm going to be using, let's start getting nice, all colors are nice, kind of a bluish, whitish color. Again, I like to use my palette that's dirty colors and get a little bit of those colors in there. This blue, I am just going to hint in here that there's a chair, and this chair is mainly in the dark, and it's a white chair. I was able to bring it to my new home, so I still have it, and I love these chairs. They are nice elements, and obviously having these chairs that you can keep out of doors, they're heavy and they have to sustain our sort of New England weather. So yeah, these are wrought iron chairs, and I'm just trying to get the impression of the chairs as not being very precise in how I do this. I don't want to get stuck with the specific design of the chairs. It's just an idea of the chair, I think, that I want. Okay, so there were several. So this one here still needs another one, because this was not necessarily straightforward, but hey, we're decided that we don't want to be too precise, so let's just avoid being very precise. What I want is to capture the essence also of light on the chair, which there was not that much. So that's why I decided to go for a blue gray, and I barely can see the back. Especially the back legs. Yeah, I was thinking. Okay. Now in here, there's also some kind of interesting sort of a pattern, but you know, again, I just want to insinuate because as it goes down, it was less visible, but I want to just give the impression we had a chair in there. All right, so I think it does give the impression of a chair. And then I had a very, very interesting thing. It's an ugly table. It's also sort of a white, but it's really not wrought iron. But it just happens that in the photo, because of where it's placed, this particular table has a very bright top. So I'm going to make that top very bright. All right. And then on this end, I had another chair. And this chair was an interesting position because we can see it from the side. So I'm using the same color and just trying to get a bit of the structure here. I don't see that much of this chair because interestingly, this chair is actually behind some foliage. So I can just see a little bit of the edge and a little bit of the arms of the chair, and then the seat. And the back is broken in the image because there's leaves coming in. So it's just a little bit of a feeling that there's another chair in here. They don't look really very nice, but let's see if we can do something about it. So I'm just wiping the brush because I want to go now and get some nice, I don't know why I always say nice color. I think all colors are nice. It just depends where you use them. They should all be nice. Okay, I did clean it with water because I want to get a brighter, maybe more white and yellow. And as you can see, I'm mixing it in different amounts. I want this to be sort of a bright area. So I'm getting into the more white. There's a bright accent on the chair. The top of that table. So what I'm doing is just wiping it and then getting it with the top of the brush. And this here had also some bright areas, and so to make them look more like in the sun is hitting them, that's why I like to play a little bit with the temperature of the white, being the bluer being colder and the yellow being warmer, but they're pretty much as bright one on the other. So I just have little areas where it was getting the light, and again reestablish some of these light areas with this lighter, and sometimes it's just making layers of color. Of course, we're painting Alla Prima, and painting Alla Prima means that your colors, as you start, they're very washy. As you remember, this was very light in terms of very diluted, and we're getting now to a more impasto kind of color here, so that it stays where you put it. And this is a bit of a challenge because it's actually illuminated through the side of the chair, and I don't know that I wanted to do a lot of details. I actually know I did not want to do many details, but I am getting into them. It's one of the, sometimes people recommend you to blur your photo or put your photo really small so you cannot see the details. That's actually not a bad idea. I've never actually blurred it, but I have made them very small so that I can just see some areas of color. Okay, so now we're getting some bright areas in here in the back, and especially here. Okay, so we're gonna go now with more white. I think the Winsor Newton Artisan white is not very powerful. As you see, I've put a lot of white in there, and the yellow still is very predominant. So bear that in mind. If you decide to go for this brand, just start painting and, you know, get used to the colors. I've also used the Lucas Berlin. Very nice, both of them very watery. I have been happier or feel better when I paint with the Artisan brand. I like both, and it's good to test several brands. Of course, one of the advantages, great advantages of the water-soluble oils is that you are painting with oils that are water-soluble and less toxic. You don't need, if you're starting in oil painting, you don't need to buy a lot of materials and solvents. You can just use water. That's a great advantage. What I'm doing here is what's called negative painting. I had established the gray in the back, remember? So that's, to me, it's like a base for saying there's some woods in there. But now I'm coming with some of this very interesting light that was coming from the sky. But it should, in my mind, still show that there's some wooded area in the back, which was there. And that I want the impression of blurred, like when I take my glasses off, there's some blurriness to it. So I'm just sort of working very lightly on top with a lot of paint in my brush. And I'm not really being very, very specific. There was an area of light that was hitting here, and I think that was what I wanted to be sort of my focal point originally, because I love this red azalea, and I know that I made it a bit, you know, less red than one would think it is, but it's because it's really in the shadow. And in the back, it was very wooded. That was the way that we designed it. He decided to use part of the landscape. He's a great landscaper. Unless I ask for his permission and he gives it to me, I won't be able to say his name. But yeah, he's a great landscaper. And if you're watching this, I think you're gonna like all the reference that I'm making to your wonderful landscaping. For the future, if you want me to mention your name, we can get in touch. He lives in Australia. Okay, there's some areas of light, you know, sort of coming through here. But as you can see, I put a little bit of a brush stroke and I just let it sit. Don't go over trying to blend too much or even trying to understand what you're painting. Sometimes I just say, where am I seeing light? And I'm not trying to understand that, well, is that a surface? Is that the light is refracting this way or the other way? I know that there's a lot of explanations for why we are seeing some of these areas one way or another, but I just want sometimes to get the impression that there was light coming from the back. And now yellow and purple are complementary colors. And I'm hoping that by adding this bright yellow here, where I had these areas that I wanted in the prune tree, I hope that that's going to pop it out, pop it more. And it is supposedly you have to go a little bit darker than the sky in the sky holes, but I have found that I just make a mixture wherever I want more idea of the light coming through that tree. Then I just add bright color in here. So as you saw, the majority of the painting is very dull colors, and we are now starting to use these bright areas to accentuate that sensation of light, that on purpose. You don't start very light. Now this particular branch, as you can see, I didn't paint the prune color again. It's the original wash, so that works well. And in some areas I like to try to keep those original shapes for trees, and in other areas I just brush it a little bit, like here. I think it was probably a bit too much. Now here, this tree is more in the front, so these sky holes were a bit more visible and lovely. I think it was just giving a nice impression. Now we have this tree, and here I think what's happening in there is that I left, let's try to make this kind of lighter on top of that area, and that's why we're seeing a lighter kind of prune tree color. So beginning we did this more alizarin crimson and this darker because this was lighter than the dark, and there's some areas of light that are hitting this tree. Now there's some areas of light that are hitting this particular tree also, and in the back. So I think that we are almost done. The only thing I want to do is that, if you can see now, a lot of white, but with the sort of yellow hint tone, because this azalea was getting some light in some of these areas, and I want that to show that's the white bush, and you could almost not see any green on those azaleas, but the rest of it has allowed us to leave it in the dark because we also use the purple color, as you remember. And if you don't remember, you can just rewind, go a little bit to the beginning on how I've been developing this. This is a ton of white here. I'm not sure I like it, but well, it's there. All right. So now we just finish the painting with some elements in here that had some bright green. Bright green is phthalo green, is beautiful for a bright green. But let's try to make it less false, or I don't know how to call it. Now I made it into a gray, which is not what I wanted, because this is more of a violet color. Let's see, can I use this violet here? Yes, I can. So sometimes this happens. By mistake, I create the color that is not necessarily what I wanted, but I think it's giving me the opportunity to establish a bit more of some of the shaded areas here. And perhaps this particular chair does need a bit more. I don't want to define these chairs too much. Okay, some of these shadows are a bit dark. I don't know why I said it with a question mark, dark. And let's just finish with this. All right, so let's go back to my original idea of getting a bright green and adding a bit more. Maybe this is going to help. So it is a bright green, and yeah, I mean, I don't want this to actually be like super popping out bright. One thing I'm going to do is, let's see if this works in the vertical palette. And I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy. I don't know if I am. This is so hard. I'm used to the glass palette. And I am not going to discard any of this paint. I like using these grays that I create for my paintings. It's a very nice way of harmonizing your paint, and you don't get rid of that color. Okay, so now, yeah, this is more like soft olive, and to be honest, those were more green. And so with phthalo green, I heard Jessica Henry has a wonderful channel in YouTube, and she is so good teaching. In one of her videos, I think she did mention that, phthalo green or phthalo blue are kryptonite. So just when you use them, just make sure that you don't go crazy, because it can actually make your painting look really weird. And actually, even though the original did have this bright sunny green, I don't like the way it's looking. I think I want it with a bit more of the yellow ochre. So a little bit more of the yellow ochre. So to summarize, we've been painting a scene from my old garden, and I wanted to do a painting that would keep very loose brush strokes, give the impression of light, color, and shape. Start with establishing the darks, and then at the very end, just add the strokes of color. And this is all Alla Prima painting, and I hope you enjoyed it. I think we are almost done, except I think I did make a bit of a mess. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm painting standing up, so I'm going back, and I think I made a mess of this area. So one option is to scrape, try to go down to that nice transparent color, that had been established. And let's see if I can just do a more traditional green. My brush still has the other color. And maybe I'm going to introduce or have to reintroduce the dark. This is where I'm going to use the other brush that I had before. And my darks, remember, I can make them with the Alizarin Crimson and the Phthalocyanine Green. I can also add a bit of blue. I think I need more red. That's too blue. Because I sort of want to paint a little bit on that area. Make it, again, a bit darker. And that's what painting is. You know what you want to keep. Once you lost it, well, some people who know how to paint probably know exactly what they want to keep. I was good until this moment, I think, in making sure that I was keeping what I enjoyed on the painting. I think this chair is going to look better now that I will try to recover the dark areas. And as you can see, it's with a large brush and just very rough. I'm not being any specific at all. And yeah, it's just introducing this kind of dark area on these leaves. Hopefully it will look like it's the leaves in there. And like I mentioned, you can see some pieces of that chair behind these leaves. Again, that's why I like to introduce the darks first, and if I painted better, if I was better at painting, I would know always exactly what areas of dark always leave. And I thought I was doing a good job. I apologize if you're getting a bit desperate, but yeah, now whole point is enjoy. Life is short. I hope you will be getting your COVID vaccine soon and that you are staying healthy and well as your family. And if this gives you a point of relaxation, try painting along with me, or after I do this, you can take your own sort of picture of your own backyard or a park that you like and paint something similar. I am just going to dare introducing again a bit of lighter, sunnier color in some of these areas, just to make it show that some of these are branches of the azalea leaves. And try to harmonize the color in the same tree. I believe these azaleas could use, I'm past the time that I wanted to spend, but I believe the azaleas would benefit from having a bit more of the red defined in there. So I am just going to get a little bit of that red and yellow. And I hope that you have enjoyed. As I mentioned, I have other paintings in my channel. This is the first time I paint with a vertical palette and with a oil that are water-soluble oils. I hope you liked it. There's a hidden chair here. I can see it. I don't know if you can. There's another one that's facing us, almost front. That table that had the light coming in, and I do want to stress how I wanted to really make this more of a brush type of thing, of painting. I hope you enjoyed it, and please join my channel, subscribe, and share the paintings if you like them. And most importantly, stay safe, stay healthy, and if you are not a painter, start painting. It's a wonderful hobby and you get very nice rewards. Thank you very much for watching.